Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I am your host, Lee Martin, here to talk some UFC. Joining me today, like always, to share their breakdowns and picks, we have SBR's MMA expert. I don't know why I wanted to call you a champion, because Dave, you are my champion. But SBR's UFC expert David Manyun and MMA Mania's lead host Matt Ryan. Before we get into our main card breakdown for UFC Vegas 39, just real quick, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show with your favorite people. Now let's get this show on the road. Like always, I want to begin the show with a recap of the event from over the weekend, and that was UFC Vegas 38, Santos versus Walker. And honestly, I expected more out of the main event. It was kind of like not that eventful for the main event, but I'm happy that Santos won. I had him by points, so I cashed out on that. But my Alex Oliveira bet did not cash, so I was kind of bummed out about that. But I want to hear how your guys' weekend went with your picks. And Matt, I will begin with you for your recap of UFC Vegas 38.
Another week, another night where you go in and out of these fights and you dip in and out and you're like, wait, that actually happened? It's just these weird placeholder cards. We talk about it on the show all the time about basically being 52 fight nights a year. It's great for us because we get to talk to you guys. But when you have to look at these fights and make pragmatic and sober approaches, it gets really hard when you see the quality dip and shift from show to show to show. Dave can illustrate that point better than anybody, but he's been on lock so far. Kind of expected this weekend, but hopefully we get some cool stuff this Saturday.
Yeah, well, I love this card, and I've been so pumped for it ever since they announced the main event, and we'll get into that right after our recap. But Dave, I want to hear how your picks went for UFC Vegas 38.
Well, I did get humbled a little bit, I will say. I went 6-5, but the most important thing is that my locks, better known as key plays, they went 3-0, bar, the Kevin Holland travesty, which, it summed up the main card. The prelims were on fire. It was from 8 fights, we had 6 finishes. Alejandro Perez, I gave that out. I gave him out as a submission, and that was a plus 950 play. And somebody did cash on that, and apparently I paid for their anniversary party. So that was good to know. But it was an up and down card as expected. I had just had a funny feeling. We spoke about it last week. It wasn't a card where I was overly confident. The good news is most of my bets cashed. And yeah, my locks came through. When it comes to odds, there weren't really any big underdogs of the night. I think it was Jamie Malarkey finishing Devontae Smith. He cashed as the biggest underdog of the night, and that was only plus 130. So there wasn't that much money to be made in straight picks. It was all in the proposition bets, and I said it last week. Alexander Hernandez inside the distance. I also gave Alex Hernandez by KO, plus 150 or minus 125, whichever one you took. I feel like that was the easiest play of the night, and that sailed in with ease. And all them 50k bonuses from that night, they were all handed out to the preliminary card. So it just goes to show that tuning into the main card each week is not always the wisest move, as last week's prelims, they stole the show, in my opinion.
You're definitely right about that. But see, I'm not surprised that you did a great job with your picks, and this is why you're the champion. We need to get a little C logo next to your name on the show for sure. But that's our recap. Let's jump into this upcoming weekend's card, because we do have 5 fights to break down on the main card. Is that 5 that I see, or is that's 5?
Yeah, 5.
I am in still moving mode, so I am very focused. But let's start our main card breakdown. For the first fight, we have middleweight Phil Hawes versus Deron Winn. Via Bet Online, Hawes is minus 310 and Winn is plus 260. Honestly, I like this fight, and I'm including this fight in my top UFC picks video, so stay tuned to that. But Matt, I will begin with you for your breakdown and pick for this first matchup.
I really like Deron Winn. Sitting under the learning tree at AKA under Daniel Cormier, was the best part about the worst mixed martial arts pay-per-view I have ever sat through. Golden Boy Promotions, his fight against Tom Lawler was the only thing that could be considered a mixed martial arts contest and not just a sad parade of who's, what's, where's, and just why's. He's coming off a unanimous decision win over Antonio Arroyo that ended a 2-fight losing streak with losses to Darren Stewart by split decision and Gerald Meerschaert by submission. He entered the UFC with a 6-fight winning streak, including wins over Eric Spicely in his UFC debut and Filthy Tom Lawler at the aforementioned ill-begotten Golden Boy MMA event. But Phil Hawes, he's a bad, bad dude. 7 straight wins, 2 of them back-to-back wins by decision, even over Kyle Dauskas and Imamov in his last 2 fights. His last loss was a knockout loss to Julian Marquez. But here's the interesting stat here. 4 of his last 7 wins have been by first round TKO. And then after you get past the first round, he's 4-2. So the deeper this fight goes, the more this fight becomes a toss-up, because both, one of, Winn has lost by decision, and he had a 2-fight and then a submission loss and a split decision loss. So I'm meandering my points because I'm trying to figure out who to actually pick in this fight because it's really close to me. I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to go with Deron Winn.
Okay. Honestly, I was a little bit back and forth in this fight, and I know people see his height at 5'6" and think like, oh no, there's no way he can win this. But he's very skilled with his wrestling. But so is Phil Hawes, and he is dangerous with his hands. That's why for me, I went to the MMA props because Hawes is very juiced, so I took Hawes inside the distance, and I was iffy between by submission or knockout. That's why I just took inside the distance at plus 100. But Dave, like always, I would love to hear what you have to say for this first fight, Hawes versus Winn. I think you're muted, by the way.
I am muted. I am now back. Yeah, so we've got Mini DC stepping back into the octagon.
Yeah.
He's 5'6", fighting in middleweight division. Has some fighters as big as 6'3" and beyond. Like, I just feel like cut some weight, lad. And to his credit, he looked great drawing his early professional career. This madman, even at one stage of his career, fought at light heavyweight. I mean, could you imagine a 5'6" guy in today's UFC light heavyweight division? I mean, imagine the fun that Johnny Walker would have with an opponent of that stature. And no disrespect to the smaller size fighters or men in general, but there are weight classes and size discrepancies. They're all there for a reason. The Olympic freestyle wrestling, that's only going to take you so far. And, Winn's losses to Stewart and Meerschaert proved that, that wrestling is only going to take you so far till you get to a certain level. And I think a lot of it is based on size. He's not a bad kickboxer. That Antonio Arroyo fight, I mean, he did okay, but then that's Antonio Arroyo, and that hasn't aged very well. The man got knocked out the other week. He hasn't won since Dana White Contender Series. He's 0-3 now in the UFC, and I'm not even sure if he's getting cut. He will probably get cut. So what can we say for that win? I mean, there's not really much behind it. Winn, he's got some decent combos on the feet, 1-2, 2-3 combos from that orthodox stance. And they are thrown with some brute force behind it. But I'm going to go back to that Gerald Meerschaert fight. His striking defense wasn't pretty. He was circling into the power hand, and that's just a no-no, in my opinion. And he got dropped by Meerschaert, who isn't really a fighter who's really that known for dropping guys. And that was all down to his striking defense, which was poor. That striking IQ, it just wasn't there. Wrestlers of Winn's caliber, more often than not, they succeed in the UFC. American Kickboxing Academy, they wanted him to drop to 170. Cormier said it before, they wanted him to drop to 170. But when you've got a guy who struggles to even make middleweight, I guess he's now just accepted his place in this division. And now he's matched with an excellent boxer in Phil Hawes, who stems from a strong wrestling background himself. And stylistically, I just think this is a horrible matchup for Winn. Hawes was... he was originally viewed as a straight-up wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
But now we're seeing some, some great footwork and a clear evolution in his striking. And this is wrestler versus wrestler. We know how these fights always play out. It's going to be a striking war. Just how Winn steered away from wrestling GM3 because of that submission threat. He knows, expending energy in these wrestling situations against a guy who's really good at grappling or wrestling. It's gonna be costly for both men. So it's gonna be a kickboxing war, this one. And with a great front kicking ability, I can see Hawes outlanding his opponent all night long. For me, Hawes' two best weapons, they're both rangefinders and distance controllers. He's got the jab and he's got the front kick. Utilizing these two could lead him, straight to a unanimous decision. But I also think that Hawes could give us a little bit more than that. Now facing a smaller opponent, then power shots are going to be as available as ever. Don't be surprised if Deron Winn loses to a vicious overhand or even a rear naked choke after being dropped. Watching him get dropped by Mariya, that's a huge red flag, and I have to side with the juice, and I have to side with Phil Hawes in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the wrestling's there, but is it going to be there against a guy who also wrestled for a lot of his life? So I think this is a sticky one. I'm not even sure why they would take a fight like this. It's dangerous for Winn, especially when he's not been winning all that much. So, I mean, Matt said, I do like Deron Winn. I think is a great guy, nice guy, great gym, but I think his back's up against the wall this week.
Yeah. I mean, Hawes, he's a D1 college wrestler, and, Winn has his wrestling background. But I can just see when he's not going to be able to get inside the range that well, he's going to attempt for a takedown, and Phil Hawes might clip him during the takedown attempt. That's how I see it. So if you guys, again, Hawes is really juiced. If you want to go to the MMA props, remember, do your homework, do your shopping before you just grab a random prop. But straight up, Phil Hawes is very juiced at -310 and Winn is +260. But let's move on to the next fight with women's flyweight. Sabina Mazon versus Mariya Agapova. I haven't heard Agapova's name in a long time. Via BetOnline, Agapova is +160 and Mazon is -185. Dave, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick. I can't talk today.
Yeah, so we've got this is a rough one. I mean, we've got a 9-2 record versus a 9-2 record, 24-year-old versus a 24-year-old. A girl in Agapova who I initially thought she was going to do well in the UFC. But even through her wins, just her consistent urge to throw everything into her openings leaves her with a drained gas tank. You can really see this girl's fight IQ is lacking. Mm-hmm. And obviously we can't be too judgmental on such a young athlete. But when my money's on the line, I'll assess her flaws however I want. And Agapova worries the hell out of me for any fight that is going to surpass the first round. Mazon is 3-2 in the UFC now. They've got that common opponent in Shayna Dobson, which was a unanimous decision win for Mazon, whereas Agapova, she lost her previous fight to Dobson. Not that MMA math is ever recommended, but again, I'm going straight to the point on pacing yourself. Agapova emptied everything she has to then lose via ground and pound to a 32-year-old 3-4 fighter in Shayna Dobson, which just isn't ticking the boxes for me. And these concerns alone, I feel like they're just forcing me to fade Agapova until she proves her worth. And she could certainly alter those negatives this weekend. She's young, as I said, but I need to see it first. I can't bet on hope, So, and obviously it's a common occurrence from her throughout her whole career. And I'm just struggling to trust. There's no way I can completely trust her with my money. So this weekend, I think it's going to be a tale of kickboxer versus kickboxer. And if I were the coaches of Mazon, I'd be telling her to get in some grappling exchanges. Agapova looked extremely tentative in that bout versus Tracy Cortez on Contender Series. She was obviously horrified of the takedown threat. And, you know, once you remove that flurry and kickboxing threat that she has, she doesn't really have anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, I think Mazon is gonna, well, she can weather the early storm. She can sail to an easy unanimous decision with a tired fighter, or even a late stoppage. Mazon's boxing has a lot to be decided, but them kicks that she has are lethal. She can easily rack up the points through a utilization of combinations and, you know, an ability to make Agapova think twice, but by grappling her. I mean, even with all that said, it's a tough fight to call. Agapova can be vicious in them first 5 minutes. I'm just not sure that's going to work against a girl who's been doing Muay Thai for a long time. In a striker versus striker bout, I think I'm going to have to go with Mazon. I believe she is the underdog as well.
No, she's 5 right now, Mazon.
Agapova's bum rushing, you know, that's worked in the past. But without even odds, it's a dog or pass situation for me, and I'm gonna have to take Mazon for the upset. I feel, just because of Agapova's horrible. I'm just gonna base it down to her fight intelligence, which seems to be really lacking. And I hate to be harsh on her because she is young, but yeah, take Mazon. Take Mazon. What do you say? Minus, what is she at? Minus 160.
185.
I think 185. Oh, I mean, I probably won't be betting it.
Yeah.
I think some money is coming in on Agapova, but she's just so untrustworthy. I thought Mazon was the dog, to be honest. I thought they definitely would have lined Mazon as the underdog, but obviously not. Yeah, I'm gonna take Mazon as the pick. Unanimous decision or late finish. Can't see Agapova getting her out there within the first 5, and that's what she needs to do, in all honesty.
Yeah. Yesterday I marked down Mazon was minus 177, so the money is coming in on Mazon. Right? Yeah. But I would like to hear from Matt. What is your breakdown and pick for this matchup?
It ain't gonna be much different. I'll say that right here, right now. Mazon had a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC. She's 3-2 inside the octagon. It's a real interesting fight for two people coming off of losses. That Mazon, who has more experience inside the octagon, is the underdog in this one. But yeah, there's no real other way around it here. I'm going with Mazon in this fight.
All right, beautiful. So again, straight up via Bet Online, Agapova is plus 160 and Mazon is minus 185. Let's move on to the next fight. We have flyweight Tim Elliot versus Matheus Nicolau. Via Bet Online, Nicolau is plus 195 and Elliot is plus 170. Matt, I will continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next matchup.
Well, you got Tim Elliot coming off of 2 straight wins by unanimous decision, and Nicolau 3 straight wins, 2 of them by split, 2 of them by decision, 1 of them by Japanese necktie. Whenever you see that as the reason for a submission, you see any kind of necktie, anaconda, bull, any kind of any noun in a submission, that's impressive, because that at some point someone had to come up with that name, and it's just magic. That's the fun part of MMA. You can name things, ridiculous things, and they just seem cool. But when you take a look at Tim Elliot, obviously a vet in the sport, been in the UFC since 2012, back when Lee and Dave were just in grade school, and I was getting my 3rd PhD in Sad Boy at the University of My Chemical Romance. And you take a look at the people that have competed against Tim Elliot. You got John Dodson. You got Joseph Benavidez, Demetrius Johnson, Davison Figueiredo, Askar Askarov, Brandon Royval. Not only are those top names in mixed martial arts, they all beat Tim Elliot. Tim Elliot has gone to a decision more times than any other way in his career. He's 8-5 in fights that go to the scorecards. That makes up almost 50% or somewhere around there. Over almost 50% of his victories have come by way of decision, and almost 50% of his total fights have gone to the scorecards, including 1 draw. So he's 8-5-1 on the scorecards. The deeper this fight goes, the more it becomes a toss-up. You take a look at Nicolau. He's 7-0 on the scorecards, and you have him fighting in the baby cage in his last fight back in March this year against Manel Cape. And he took that by a split decision. You like to think that the veteran here has the advantage because he's got more time inside the octagon. He'll know how to be more wily and utilize this to his advantage. And if he had to go to a split decision against Cape, and most of his fights have gone to, most of his fights have been unanimous decision victories when he's gone to the scorecards, that might be a nice indicator there for you to see Elliot as a dog here, a solid dog here. To me, I'm going with Nicolau, and Tim Elliott, he's got a shot. But the deeper this fight goes, the more I like for Matheus Nicolau.
All right. Well, how about you, Dave? What is your breakdown and pick for Elliot versus Nicolau?
I'm on the opposite side of Matt again. We're 2 for 2 now. First of all, Manal Karp was robbed. I think that fight cost me. I think it might have been the punch and parley that fight cost me, and I was fuming. I was not happy because Nicolau should be entering this fight coming off a loss, and for a guy who fought to a split decision loss, that's a warning sign for me against a veteran in Tim Elliot. Tim Elliott's capabilities are there, especially in these dogfights. Elliot is so well-rounded on the feet and on the ground. He's got ultimate pressure in every position, cardio for days, such a high output on the feet, and a wealth of experience against some of the most elite fighters that the UFC has had to offer. The fight that this man brought to Demetrius Johnson, the Ultimate 24 finale, I'll never forget that fight because I couldn't believe how well Tim Elliott did against, at the time, the best in the world. Now, Elliott's mistakes, they usually come from a lack of patience, giving up positions on the ground. This has cost him a few submission losses, but in the striking department, standing, a lot of fighters can't find success. They really can't. Nicolau, he does own an elite grappling skill set, which I believe is his path to victory. But on the feet, the technically sound style of the Brazilian, I think is going to be easily overcome by just the intelligence and fight IQ of Elliot. Output for me is going to be the key here. And Nicolau has just shown me too much hesitancy. On the ground, I do think, the scrambling exchanges, the submission attempts, that's all Nicolau. But I just don't think we'll see this fight take place on the ground as much as we will standing. Watching him get pressured by Manal Karp for the last 2 rounds, it just gives me that feeling that Elliot can do the exact same. Too many one-shot attempts from Nicolau, a lack of combinations versus this high pressure and output at Elliot should result in another split decision, sticky split decision, or maybe even a unanimous decision for the veteran if he can keep this standing for all 3 rounds. And when we look at the price, for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm not shitting on Nicolau by any means. I think he's great. But that Manal Karp fight proved to me that once them grappling opportunities are minimized, he slows down and he becomes too comfortable doing nothing. We can even go back to the Dustin Ortiz knockout loss. Just a lack of defensive tools. Sort of the veteran Ortiz at the time finding his chance to finish him. And although I do think this is Elliot by decision, I also wouldn't be surprised if he gets caught. Interestingly enough, I was looking at these odds, and I also wouldn't be opposed to playing both sides because I think that Nicolau by submission is his path to victory. I can't see him beating Elliot on the scorecards through output. I mean, unless of course he can keep this grounded for 3 rounds, which I don't think he can because Elliot's got such good scrambling abilities himself. Then it's Nicolau by sub or Elliot ML for me, and that's plus 500 versus plus 160. You can play both sides of that. You can put a quarter unit on the plus 500 and a full unit on Elliot and walk away with money. if either of them two results happen, which I think is highly likely. But for me, I'm gonna take Elliot. I'm gonna go with the dog. His second run in the UFC, and obviously Matt highlighted them losses, but again, them losses are to the best of the best, and I just don't think Nicolau is there just yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking at the MMA props right now. Matheus Nicolau by submission is plus 550. Him by 25 points is plus 125. So that's favored the most out of all of it right now. But Tim Elliott by points is plus 200, but he has value straight up too. Straight up, he's at plus 170 via BetOnline, and Nicolau is minus 195. But let's move on to the co-main event. We have welterweight Randy Brown versus Jared Gooden via BetOnline. Is minus 230 and Gooden is plus 195. Matt, I'll begin with you for the co-main for your breakdown and pick, please.
All right. So Jared Gooden is someone who walked into the UFC on a 3-fight winning streak and then promptly lost 2 straight fights by unanimous decision. His debut against Alan Jouban and then against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. His last fight, though, was back in July. He dropped Nicolas Stolze in the first round of his fight. But he's going up against a guy in Randy Brown who has a lot of experience in the UFC, been here since the early days of 2016, debuted in Newark. And anytime you're fighting on a Newark card pre-2017 or so, you knew those were big cards because that was the only way they can get inside New York City. So fighting on that card means that the UFC may have something in you, or you just gave them $20. I don't even know. It's New Jersey. But when you take a look at his run in the UFC, he's gone up against Brian Kamazi, Bilal Muhammad, Mickey Gall, Nico Price, and then he's got his most recent fight against Alex Oliveira. I think in step-up fights, Randy Brown finds himself in trouble because he's got mixed reviews. He's lost to Vicente Luque, he's lost to Nico Price, but he's been able to pull out wins against the Brian Barberenas of the world. For me, I think he's got the best shot of winning this fight. I'm going to go with Randy Brown. I think Jared Gooden, the deeper this fight goes, he's going to slip into what cost him fights against Nurmagomedov and Jouban. You know, he's got some solid stats against them, but for me, Randy Brown, the veteran here, is going to take the win in the co-main.
All right. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you have the same pick as Matt, or do you see this fight going a different way?
No, I completely agree. Completely agree. Power puncher versus, a technical striker who's just all around better, a greater mixed martial artist, in my opinion. Jared's right cross against Nicolas Stolze caught me off guard. This time around, I don't think he's gonna have the same fortune here. The tools of Randy Brown really underrated. And he's so well-rounded that I am genuinely surprised he hasn't reached the top 10 or top 15 of this division. I mean, it was unfortunate for him, Vicente Luque came along as he was itching close to that higher rank position. A great wrestling game with 5 submissions, accompanied with a striking offense that delivered 6 professional knockouts. And now a drop down in competition is offered. I don't think this was the original bout that the UFC wanted. I think it was a case of Brown was scheduled for this night and Gooden was the best they could do. And it's definitely a drop down for Randy Brown. I think they're worlds apart, if I'm honest. But the problem is that Gooden, he does have that power to cause an upset. The upset could happen. Just like last weekend's main event. It was Johnny Walker, and really for Johnny Walker to win, he needed that knockout. He needed that one-shot knockout, and he didn't get it. And I'm relying on that happening this weekend. I don't think Gooden's going to get it. This is Brown's fight to lose, no doubt. And obviously, I'm going to side with Brown. It's Brown versus a knockout opportunity. I know you got like Derek Lewis. He's made a career of being a knockout artist. So if you do like Gooden, it's take that KO prop because he is not winning this fight by decision. There's no chance for Brown. I think a wrestling game plan will make sense here. His kickboxing is great. He's got fast hands. Perfect stature at 6'3". Got them long limbs. He's got great combinations as well. I love the jab low, jab high that he comes with, finish with a hook. a great mixture of combinations. It's never the same. And that type of offense is going to confuse somebody like Gooden, who's consistently looking for that one shot and walk away type of punch. Now, despite Brown being better on the feet, why bother risking that knockout potential when you can have the advantage anywhere? So for me, it's wrestle Gooden, tire him, submit him. Mm-hmm. That's the simple path for Randy Brown. Whether he takes it or not, who knows? But as I said, he can win this anywhere. So I think this is Brown's fight to lose. Predicting how it's going to finish, that's just the tough one. I do see him getting Gooden out there, but it's not like Gooden's no chump. He's not gonna let someone just come in and completely beat him up. So I think it's all gonna be positional for Randy Brown. If he can get this to the floor and get her back, I think that's probably his easiest path to getting this done inside the distance. I'm just not sure he's gonna do that. He might want to play around on the feet. I'm really not sure. That is the dangerous path, but he does have the capabilities to do that, and he is, his striking defense is sound. To accomplish that. So yeah, for me, it is Randy Brown. I think, this price is obviously only going to be going one way, and I can't see many people taking Gooden at this point. There's not really much reason to take him other than that knockout. I'm not sure what the knockout prop is, but it must be plus 300 or around that area. But yeah, it's Randy Brown. I don't mind the juice. You know me though. I don't really like paying anything over 2 units, so collecting a unit back on Randy Brown, you're going to have to be paying 2.2 or maybe even 2.5, 2.6 at some books. So maybe a parlay piece, it will definitely juice up your parlay nice. But for me, it's Rude Boy Randy Brown all day.
I'm just looking at MMA props because why not? But Jared Gooden by knockout is plus 400 for him to win inside the distance, plus 300. So you were right with that. But Brown by points is plus 200 again. But I agree with you with the finishing props for this fight. I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not even going to bet this fight. I'm just going to watch it. But yeah, the minus 230 into a parlay is probably your best bet right there. But again, straight up, Brown is minus 230 and Gooden is plus 195. So let's go to the main event. And this is my favorite fight on this card because I love both of these women so much. All right, we have women's strawweight, Mackenzie Dern versus Marina Rodriguez. Via Bet Online, Dern is minus 171. Rodriguez is plus 146. I'm going to tell you right now, I am all over Dern with this. And don't get me wrong, I am not doubting Marina Rodriguez at all. I just think when we have a grappler versus striker, I'm mainly going to lean towards the grappler. And I think Mackenzie Dern can if she can eat those punches and get in the distance, take her down on the ground, she's going to wear her down on the ground. And Marina Rodriguez has shown in her past fights, she is not good on the ground. So I like Mackenzie Dern in this fight. And I have it all out there. I included it in my top UFC picks video, so check it out if you want to hear my whole rant on that. But I'm here for you guys. I want to hear your breakdowns and picks for the main event. So Matt, I will begin with you for your breakdown and pick.
So I look at trends. You see me talk a lot about, common fights on this show. You take a look at Amanda Ribas and Randa Marcos. Those are two common opponents for both of these fighters. Mackenzie Dern, her only career loss came against Amanda Ribas back in October of 2019. And against Randa Marcos, she was able to pull off the submission win. And when Amanda Ribas got dropped by Marina Rodriguez, and Randa Marcos had a majority draw against Marina Rodriguez. So it's an interesting confluence of events between both of these fighters. I think Rodriguez getting a unanimous decision win over Michelle Waterson is impressive because Michelle Waterson is someone who can pull out a win on the scorecards. I saw your face, Lee. I saw the face you made. But I'm not necessarily saying that Mackenzie Dern isn't going to win this fight on points. This is a main event, so I believe this one's going to be a 5-rounder, the same one that Marina Rodriguez went through. And this is the first time I believe that we're going to see Mackenzie Dern in a 5-round fight or go to the scorecards past the 3rd round. We've seen her go to a decision a couple of times in her career. She's 4-1 on the scorecards. But as you said, it's a grappler versus striker. It's a baby cage. So Rodriguez is going to have to start aggressive early to try to keep away someone in Mackenzie Dern who has got the most submission wins in strawweight division history with 4. She's got 3 performances of the nights. And, you know, she is someone who with a grappling, and she's got a black belt in BJJ and gold medals from the ADCC and the World Jiu-Jitsu Championships, the No-Gi World Jiu-Jitsu Championships. Once this fight gets onto the ground, which it's going to, there is no way around this. This fight is going to the ground. It's going to be Mackenzie Dern's fight. It's whether or not she's going to be able to pull a submission on Marina Rodriguez, which no one's been able to do yet inside or outside of the octagon. I've got Dern. I think this one's going to go the distance unless somehow, some way Rodriguez just lands the phantom punch of phantom punches and drops Mackenzie Dern dead cold in the middle of the apex.
Yeah, no, I'm not disregarding Marina Rodriguez at all. She can finish someone if she wants to. It's just a matter of Mackenzie Dern, her chin withholding whatever Marina Rodriguez throws at her. But Dave, I would love to hear your breakdown and pick for this main event.
Typically, this is the type of fight where I would be telling people, stay very away. Don't touch it with a barge pole. But the D-Gen, this is such a banger of a main event. The D-Gen is just being unleashed in me.
Yeah.
I also, as a part of my job, have to give a main event pick. So, no, it's so tough, and nobody has got confidence in this. I don't care who you are. If you're picking Dern, you are worried about Rodriguez's hands, and if you're picking Rodriguez, you're worried about that world-class jiu-jitsu that Dern's been doing since she could basically walk. We've got 2 of the strawweight division's best prospects. They're going to go to war. Brazilian jiu-jitsu world champion. You know, she was ranked #1 in the world. And she is facing a vicious Muay Thai striker who's got that knockout ability that we just rarely stumble across in this division. Now, first off, I will highlight, you know, Rodriguez's get-up ability is a concern, and I understand why everyone is rushing to take Dern by decision. It's a completely reasonable stance to take on this fight. But since I first looked at this fight, I've got a funny feeling for how much of an advantage that Dern is going to own in the ground game. Rodriguez owns the same advantages on the feet. A round or 2 later of taking Rodriguez's jabs to the face and kicks to the body, Dern is not going to be as dangerous. And the longer this fight plays out, I just have a feeling that it's going to be favouring the Brazilian. Now, obviously, Rodriguez was taken down by Carla Esparza, Waterson got her down, Amanda Ribas got her down, but did it matter? Because she won all of those bouts apart from the Esparza fight, and even that would have ended bad for Esparza if it was a 5-round fight. You look at the face of Carla Esparza, and you would have never have guessed she won that fight, because that's how mean Rodriguez's strikes are. I love Rodriguez's willingness to just deliver pure damage to her opponents, and more importantly, she's faced a lot of grapplers who have a greater takedown ability than Dern, and she's defeated them. Not jiu-jitsu ability. Dern is probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in this company, but in terms of takedown wrestling, that's Dern. She does always seem to find a way to get her opponents down, but it's just not something I can really rely on. And as I say, my gut feeling is just not leaning that way. I mean, hopefully Rodriguez doesn't decide to start striking off her back, as we've seen her done before, which is it's crazy, throwing elbows off her back and punching people that are in full guard of her back. Because if she does that against a girl like Dern, she's gonna pay for it. She's gonna pay for it. She's gonna get her arm snapped. But to Rodriguez's testament, you know, she's never been submitted. And, you know, her sole loss is against a former champion in Esparza, which, as I said, if that was a 5-round fight, it might have not been might not turned out as well as it did for Esparza. A girl who's a wrestling ability, it's non-comparable to Dern's takedown offense. Dern's not even close. I'm talking a good game here, but we need to highlight Dern I said it, is probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner inside the UFC, man or woman. Now that we don't have Damian Maia in his prime, she's the former #1 in the world, and jiu-jitsu is her bread and butter. If you're betting Mackenzie Dern this weekend, take that submission prop. Her ability to transition and pass the guard is incredible. Watching her flow on the ground, I was watching all of her old fights and all of her UFC fights. Just when she's on the ground, that's her home, and she has just an endless amount of submission holds. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if she handed Rodriguez her first ever submission loss. That wouldn't be a surprise at all. But in a 5-round fight, I genuinely believe that Rodriguez can accumulate just severe amounts of damage on Dern and even find a finish before the judges get involved after the 25 minutes. At range, in the pocket, in the clinch, Rodriguez is going to throw all strikes available: knees, elbows, hooks, jabs. And then at a distance, you know, like calf kicks, inside leg kicks, teep kicks, a beautifully managed jab. And I think Rodriguez, she just makes a smart choice of shots behind a significant amount of power, which is hidden. But it soon becomes exposed on the opponent's face when you look at their faces after fighting Rodriguez. And the problems that Waterson presented to Rodriguez, she won't have to worry about versus Dern, whose striking output, you know, it's quite basic. It's getting better. Obviously, she can do an entire fight camp and focus solely on her striking. Mm-hmm. But every fight starts standing. I've just got a funny feeling that if Rodriguez can take this one outside of the first round, I don't think Mackenzie Dern is going to be as much as a threat. The more she becomes tired, I think striking's a lot easier to pull off than scrambling and wrestling and attempting to take someone down. And given the price, I think I gave this out at 160 or 150 last week. The money's coming in on Rodriguez, because I think this should be a -110, -110 fight. Both girls are respectively dangerous behind their skill sets, and it's just a case of picking which skill set you think is gonna happen. Which girl is gonna turn up at this weekend? We don't know. We don't know what's going through their heads. I'm gonna pick Marina Rodriguez. It's a dog pick. I have to get in on this action. It's an incredible main event. Deserves to be the main event. And I think both these girls have got great careers ahead of them, but I'm siding with the Brazilian this weekend.
See, I love these two girls when they fight. Every time I watch them fight, it's just a good fight. But now, Dave, honestly, you taking Marina Rodriguez, that's a good bet, because there's a lot of value in her with those dog odds. So even though I'm taking Dern, I am not upset with your pick whatsoever, because it just makes sense. Me personally, I'm taking Dern because I'm going with my own gut feeling and her showing like us that Marina Rodriguez can't survive on the ground, like has she shown us in her previous fights. But I guess we'll see, like always. But again, straight up via BetOnline, Dern is -171. Rodriguez is +146. Let me just look at the props real quick. Mackenzie Dern by submission is +100. And I'm just looking, see if this fight will go the distance. Fight to go the distance, no, is juiced at -225. And fighter to win inside the distance, Mackenzie Dern -105. So there are your props for you. But anyway, that is our entire main card. Let's move on over to our top prelim pick. And let me look at this preliminary card. Honestly, it's not my favorite preliminary card, but if I had to choose one, I haven't even looked at the odds at this. I mean, Romanov, that's a good fight. He's very juiced at -650. Alexander Romanov is -650.
Jesus.
I know, that's why I'm like, Jesus. All right, but Matt, I'm going to begin with you for your top prelim pick for this weekend.
Well, it was the big boy fight, Alexander Romanov versus Jared Vanderaa. Jared Vanderaa looking exactly like what you think an early 2000s mixed martial arts heavyweight would look like, and Alexander Romanov looking like he should be a son of Drago. The reach in all of this here, it's an interesting fight. I'm excited to see what happens. But that line, I want to watch the fight because I love the heavyweights, but I want nothing anywhere near any kind of wagering on that fight. My God.
Honestly, I'm a little interested in the Damon Jackson fight and Charles Rosa fight. I'm not going to bet anything on this prelim card, so don't follow anything that I say. I'm just telling you the fights that I am most looking forward to. So those are the two fights I would say I'm looking forward to. But how about you, Dave? Do you have a top prelim pick for this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be the big boys. Romanov inside the distance is extremely juiced, but I think it's great for a parlay piece. I really do. It's a new era of heavyweights, you know. We've got your Cyril Ngannou, Tom Aspinall, Augusto Sakai, Chris Daukaus, you know, the other week. They really are coming through, and I think Alexander Romanov is going to be one of them guys. He's 40-0 for a reason. He's a legit martial artist. Coming out of Moldova, his dad was a master of sports in judo and sambo, so naturally, you know, he began fighting from a real early age, and it was freestyle wrestling. I've also seen rumors that he was a sumo wrestler, and that's weird because no matter how much I search, no matter where I look, I've scoured everywhere. And believe me when I tell you this, I do not think Alexander Romanov has ever fought in any type of sumo. Maybe he trained a little in a gym one time. But if you ever see anybody saying that he is a sumo wrestler, that's wrong. He's a freestyle wrestler, and he's pretty damn good at it. Now, last time out, he fought João Espino, who was another undefeated, you know, heavyweight prospect who was looking to be dangerous, and he won that fight. And rightfully so. I think the Moldovans' wrestling prowess here, it's just going to overcome and overwhelm Vanderer this weekend. And inside the distance is minus 220 or minus 230 around that price. I think it might have gone up since I last checked.
I have minus 25. Sorry to interrupt, but 225.
Yeah, minus 225, and it's at that price for a reason. Last time out, Vanderer, he was beaten by Sergey Spivak into a bloody pulp. You know, he was out-grappled and submitted by a very inexperienced Renan Ferreira, who's now in PFL, back in 2019. I think we've seen him be taken down. I think it's inevitable he's going to get taken down here. And we've got a guy in Romanov who... They actually need a new name, as Matt was talking about the good submission names, Japanese necktie. The forearm choke that Romanov landed in the UFC, it definitely needs a new name. So maybe Matt can propose something to the UFC, because forearm choke's a bit boring, but he was the first ever person to land it in the UFC. We'd never seen it. This guy gets people out of the cage. That Espino fight, I think that was the first fight that he'd never finished in his entire career. And that's just a testament to how tough Espino is. I don't think our boy Jared is on that level. I think he's going to get put out, and I think it's going to happen within the first round and a half. So for me, it's Romanov. I like Romanov fight under 1.5. Romanov inside the distance. If you want to, you know, add a little cherry to parlay, the Romanov straight money line, I'm happy with that. It's juiced for a very good reason. And although Jared does come from a bit of a background in wrestling himself, it just cannot be compared to the experience of Romanov. So yeah, my favorite prelim is Alexander Romanov to go 15-0 and get more recognition in this heavyweight division, which is a division that's quite easy to, you know, get yourself popping in, because it's quite thin at the moment.
Yep. So yeah, since the three of us mentioned this one as our favorite prelim fight, I guess I'm just going to read the odds one more time. Alexander Romanov inside the distance is minus 225, and straight up he's so juiced at minus 650. So we have it for the prelims. But let's move on to our lock on the card. And honestly, for me, I like Phil Hawes inside the distance. That is my favorite one for this week. But I want to hear what you guys have to say for your potential lock on this card. And Matt, I'll begin with you.
Man's a monster. Line's way too good. That's the lock. Stay away from it. But that thing's going to be the stone cold lock of the week of the pick of the month of the century.
Wait, I think your lock, who you chose, was like cut off.
I'm sorry, I went 90 million an hour. The big Russian boy, BOI, like the one with all the murderous eyes.
Okay, so there we go. How about you, Dave? What is your lock on the card?
See, I give out these key plays and these locks every week. I think this might be a week where I'll struggle to find one. Randy Brown is going to be my lock this week. Romanov, he's the obvious lock of the card. I think there's a very small margin of chance that he can lose that fight. It is MMA, of course he can lose, but he opened as a -1/400 favorite. That was the odds makers line. It's now been juiced a little, and the money's going to continue coming on him. So if you are playing Romanov, get in there quick. He is a lock, but for an alternative, it's going to be rude boy Randy Brown. I think he can just outclass Jared Gooden all over.
Beautiful. Well, that is our show. We went over the entire main card breakdown. We covered our top prelim pick and also our lock on this card. Now, if you're not following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Matt at MRyan Consulting. You can follow Dave at @DMannion_. And then while you're at it, just give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And Matt, I know you've had a lot of projects going on lately. You showed me your Catalyst Wrestling voiceover video that you did, and I love that. But do you have any announcements for all of our viewers regarding your content?
Yeah, I put together a wrestling pay-per-view. Catalyst Wrestling, the professional wrestling company I own, along with a few other people, but I'm the executive producer for, has a video on demand available at catalystwrestling.com, and it's just for $1. It is 72 pence or euros. So if you want some good wrestling, you need 2 hours of content to get you through your Wednesday or get you before fight night. There we go. A lot of coffee today. A lot of coffee. Go to catalystwrestling.com. It's just for $1. You can also DM me on Twitter at MRyan Consulting to get the direct link. It's catalystwrestling.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Definitely check it out, because I checked out one of Matt's videos for Catalyst Wrestling yesterday, and I loved it. Very entertaining. But also, Dave, you have to check out all of his content. He does share it on his Twitter page. And if you'd like to find more of his content and the rest of SBR's UFC Experts content, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. And just a quick little announcement for all of my football fans out there. Yes, it is football season, which means it is SBR's annual Pick 6 football contest. All you have to do is make 6 picks every week in college football and our NFL spreads and totals. And then if you finish 6-0 or in the top 10, then you win your share of the weekly $1,600 pool prize. This is free money, and signing up is also free. So, why wouldn't you just try? Because I think you guys would do awesome. Again, sbrpicks.com/pick6. And that's our show. Like always, I wish you all the best of luck on all of your wagers, and we'll see you next time.